One, everyone can hear me, which I'm seeing a lot of reports back. Thank you, folks. And two, this is being recorded, so there will be you can always follow up if you have to miss a piece of it and catch up with it after. And three, if you have any questions, we are using the Q&A functionality for this presentation. So please feel free to enter any information into the Q&A window, which you'll see in your web console, and we will make our best efforts to answer it in line. If we don't get to it in the middle of the presentation, we'll answer it at the end. And if for some reason we don't answer your question by the end of the presentation, and when we run out of time, we'll be going ahead and reaching out to you with an answer after. So that's all of that out of the way. Let's get started. Welcome to ownCloud 5, the Enterprise Edition, our on-site integrated and extensible newest release of ownCloud. My name is Matt Richards. I run products. Frank Karacek is with us today, our CTO and co-founder. Frank, you want to just say hi?
Sure. Yeah, hi to everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm the founder of the ownCloud project and the CTO of ownCloud Inc. And I will show you a few interesting new features that we have in ownCloud 5 together with Matt today.
Excellent. Thanks, Frank. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Just as a refresher on how we like to talk about ownCloud, and I'll do a few slides like this, and then I'll hand it over to Frank to take care of the really interesting parts of what's new and different, and then we'll close it up at the end and then set aside some time for questions. We talk about ownCloud. Do you have a Dropbox problem? And really, this is a graphical picture of how this Dropbox problem comes around. Two users inside an enterprise, they want to share a file, but that file's too big for email. What do? Well, typically, what happens is someone hears about Dropbox or something like it, Google Drive or something along those lines, and they just go ahead and set up an account. It takes seconds. They can push the document off into that external system, in this case, in quotes, Dropbox. But there are many others like it, and now those users can get on with the day. This isn't a malicious thing, but this is about getting the job done, and the problem is they've now pushed enterprise content outside of the control of IT. So we have security and governance issues, you have storage and servers that you don't own or control, logging, policy, backup, all of that unknown and uncertain. And SLA is also unknown and uncertain when you get outside the enterprise like this. So bottom line, depending on who you believe, this is 40% of the surveyed companies in the U.S. or of the surveyed employees in the U.S., 40% are using Dropbox or Dropbox-like services inside the enterprise without IT's permission or knowledge or consent. So what that means is, yeah, most likely enterprises do have a Dropbox problem, and we set out to fix that at ownCloud. And ownCloud really is the solution to that. And what we do is we take the ownCloud solution, takes the firewall and just slides it to the right. Whereas before we had the cloud services outside of the enterprise, now they're inside the enterprise, provided to you by ownCloud, software running on your servers, on your architecture, managed by you, to your policies, to your guidelines, backed up on your schedules, integrated with your storage and servers. You can take care of provisioning, and you can govern and secure the solution. And you can still provide that same sort of user experience you get out of the consumer-grade solutions, but providing them on your own servers. And that's in a nutshell what ownCloud does for you. ownCloud is that software that runs on your server. Now what we try to do is help those folks who are concerned about data leakage and sensitive data leaking via Dropbox or other Dropbox-like services, deliver the same Dropbox-like, basically deliver a secure file sync and share solution inside their own data center. So that's completely on-site, or interestingly enough, wherever you choose to put it. If you happen to want to outsource or host it somewhere else, that's entirely up to you. It's yours. And you can start in one location and move it. It's yours. We integrate it with your infrastructure, everything. We can integrate in with your Active Directory and LDAP, et cetera. And we're very extensible through APIs and plugins. And in a previous webinar, which you can take a look at, we actually went through a little bit about how you could create a plugin for ownCloud and the steps to go about extending it to meet your needs specifically if you need to. And last but not least, still providing all of this within the context of that seamless, easy-to-use, consumer-grade experience that the end users demand in the enterprise. And that's really in a nutshell what ownCloud is and what makes us different. So without further ado, here are the components of ownCloud. The ownCloud server, we like to call it the brains, and that's what ownCloud 5 refers to. And then we have iOS and Android, and then Windows, Mac, and Linux desktop clients. On the iOS and Android side, we've recently released 1.4.2 on the Android Google Play Store and iOS version 2.12. And we're on desktop client version 1.3.0, all of which released very recently. But what we're here to talk about today is ownCloud 5. And Frank, you want to take it away on ownCloud 5? What's new?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Matt. Can you switch to the next slide? Oh, yeah, thanks. Okay. We have basically 3 areas where we improved ownCloud a lot, from ownCloud 4.5 that we released last year to ownCloud 5 Enterprise Edition now. And those areas are basically security, integration, and usability. In the area of security, we now have an improved server-side encryption in place. It's AES-based, so it's a really strong industry standard encryption mechanism. I'll explain a little bit about this later. We have support for multiple LDAP or Active Directory servers, so this gives you more flexibility for integration into your infrastructure. Then we have an enhanced logging module where you can log all kinds of events that happen on your own cloud server. That's also another important feature we think that's not available with other standard hosted cloud offerings. Then in the integration area, we have a provisioning API that you can use to control your own cloud server from the outside via a REST interface, so you can create new users, edit users, delete users, and things like that. We added MS SQL database support, so if you use MS SQL in your enterprise, in your organization, and you want to use it together with ownCloud, that's now possible. And then we have another interesting new feature that's called Home Directory Mount. We talked with a lot of customers, and most organizations, doesn't matter if it's a university or a big enterprise, you normally have already existing home directories for your users. You have some file server or some place, an LFS server, something like that, where you have home directories for every user. And of course, you want to use these home directories in your own cloud. You don't want to have the storage, the files in 2 places. You only want to have the files in 1 place. So we can now transparently integrate these existing home directories into your own cloud and make it then together with ownCloud syncable and shareable and so on. And usability, of course, we added a feature called anonymous upload. As you know, we can share files and folders with the outside. It's just a simple link. You can click on a file or folder and say, okay, now I want to share this document or this folder, directory, whatever, with someone in another organization where you work together with, or with just someone outside your firewall where you want to collaborate with. And that's already possible for a long time, as you know, but now you can also share, for example, a folder with someone to the outside and say, hey, just here's a place that you can upload your document. So if you want to exchange documents that's, as Matt said, too big for email, you can just send someone a mail and say, hey, please put it here. And this person doesn't need an account in your organization. It can be done anonymously. And then last but not least, we improved our web interface. So I can show you a little bit about this later. We added a lot of improvements. We got a lot of feedback from our users, worked together with user experience guys, and I think we did a lot of progress here, but also more about this later. Okay, I also want to give you a very, very brief overview about the marquee features of ownCloud. As Matt already said, the key thing is, of course, that it's hosted in your data center, so you control where it runs, where it's hosted, where it's integrated with, which firewalls you use, which backup you use, and so on. So you're in complete control. You can also use your existing storage. You can use your existing NFS server, NAS, Sun, CIFS, Windows file server, whatever, and integrate with ownCloud. You can have plugins. We have existing plugins that you can use to basically adapt ownCloud for your needs. But as Matt said, it's also possible that you develop your own if you want to integrate your specific needs. It's very easy to integrate it. Then, of course, the last 2 points: sync files and folders and share files and folders. As we already said, that's the key functionality, of course. So you can sync your files and folders to your desktop, to your notebook, to your tablet, to your phone. So you basically have all your files always available, and you can share it with people inside your organization or with people outside your organization with passwords and expire dates. And if you can configure if it's a read-only link or it's read-write. So it's really a lot of flexibility, and you're in control of your files. So that's the story behind ownCloud. Okay, so now we going a little bit deeper into the new features. Here we have a screenshot of the new user interface. I want to explain a little bit how it works. The basic setup is the same as before, but we have fine-tuned it. On top, you see the main bar. On the top left, you see the logo, of course. You can always click on the logo, and you get always back to the main screen, to the root directory. So it's always possible. On the right side, you have the full text search. In the normal version, you can just type in a keyword, and you can find your files, with this keyword in the name, and you can also activate a full text search plugin that you can even search inside files. And then on the complete right-hand side, we have a menu, but we have another screenshot coming up where you can see what's in this menu. And then on the left-hand side, you have this gray bar. In this bar, there are all the apps, all the plugins listed. Now, I mean on the complete left, the dark gray bar, I'm sorry, where you can see files at the moment. Files is, of course, that's the core functionality of ownCloud. You can sync and share your files, but it's possible to have more of those icons there on this bar. And that's the case if you enable more of these apps or plugins, as we call it. So we have a lot more that will show up on this bar. And then in the content area, you have this light gray bar on top. There's the new and there's the upload button. With new, you can create new folders and files. This button at this arrow shows if you click on this arrow, you can upload new files from your local machine to your ownCloud if you want to do that. Of course, you can always sync it with our syncing clients, but you can even upload it directly. And it also works with drag and drop. So you can drag and drop your files on your browser. This works too. On the right-hand side, now below the menu, can you go back, Matt, to the screen before? Oh yeah, we have this deleted files button, and if you deleted a file by accident, or even if you delete it on purpose, and later you think, oh, I want to have this back, you can click on this button, and you have a trash bin and can restore your files. And then in the content area, you of course have the normal file manager view. In this case, it's just a long list of folders, but if you have files, they are listed there too with nice icons. Can we go to the next screen? Okay, great. Now you see the menu that appears if you click on the username that you see on the right top corner of the screen, where you see admin here. The first entry is personal. There you can see, this is basically a button or a link to your personal page. You can change a few personal settings there. And the other entries like users and apps and admin, they are only available if you're an admin. So if you log in admin, you can manage other user accounts, manage apps, and have a few admin settings there. And the last entry is, of course, log out that you can use to leave ownCloud. So that's basically the new user interface. As I said, we basically work together with a lot of user experience and usability people and integrate a lot of improvements here. And I think that it's really nice to use. In our experience, people understand it without a problem. So it's very intuitive. Okay. Next thing is our provisioning API. I mentioned it earlier. That's a REST API. It's an OCS API. OCS is the Open Collaboration Services. That's an open standard for REST APIs. And we have a special module in this API that we can use here for provisioning users. So you can basically create a user just with one simple REST, just one simple HTTP call. So it's very easy to like administer your own cloud from remote. I mean, if you use to Unix systems, a REST call is basically a one-line curl command that can be integrated in other scripts, shell scripts, or for example, like a cron jobs or whatever. So you can imagine a lot of interesting automation things that you can do with this API. MS SQL and Oracle support. We support this enterprise databases. So as you know, we also support SQLite and MySQL and Postgres, but now also those two enterprise-grade databases. And as I mentioned before, we have this home directory mounts. So we have this interesting feature that you can mount the home directories of users into your own cloud, and that's a very powerful feature. We also made sure that it respects all the ACLs and all the permissions and all the passwords and so on that you have in use. So it's a very powerful feature. And those features, they are in the enterprise edition only, because they are features that are really optimized for using enterprises in big enterprises, and they are only available in our enterprise edition. Then the community edition, we also have this LDAP integration feature that I mentioned earlier, and LDAP exists since basically day one of ownCloud. But as I said, it's now way more powerful. We can support several servers, and it's really suitable for big installations. I don't think we have time to go through every option here, but it's really very flexible. So we are quite proud of our flexible LDAP and Active Directory integration here. Okay. Then, as I said before, we have this undelete feature. I showed you this button before. If you click on the undelete button on the right-hand side, you get a list of the deleted items. Can be a file, or can be a folder. And as you can see, we have this nice restore icon. You just click on it, and this item is then restored and placed again to the original location. So it's very easy to use. Of course, we can also safely delete files completely. So if you delete a file and you're really sure that it should be gone and you don't want to see it anymore because it's confidential or something, you can even delete it out of the trash bin. And then on the bottom of the screen, we have a screenshot of the anonymous upload functionality. We have a view that you see if you received a shared public sharing link from someone. Then you have this nice file manager view. You can download items if you have the permission, and as I said, using this version, you can upload files. So, for example, you in your organization, you work together with a subcontractor, and you need to share a few files between your organization and their organization, but you don't want to give them access to your local network. They don't have accounts. They don't want to have a VPN account or something like that. That's just not allowed or too complicated. Then with this functionality, you can just create like a shared collaboration space, like a shared folder. And as I said, the other party can upload files here without having an access to your local ownCloud machine. Okay. And then other areas where we made significant improvements are documentation. I mean, we had very nice documentation since the beginning, but now it's really improved. So you can go to doc.owncloud.com, and we have a really nice documentation with screenshots, and you can download a PDF manual. So it's a really powerful, rich resource. And we have documentation for admins, so you can learn how to install and to run your own cloud. You have documentation for developers if you want to extend your own cloud with apps and plugins. As Matt said, we did a webinar for this before, so if you're interested in that, just can look it up later. And of course, we have the third kind of manual that are user manual. The user manuals, we have a description how ownCloud can be used by the end users, and you can take that and provide it to your users if you want, if they want to learn how to use ownCloud. But we think it's very intuitive, but yeah, documentation is also nice, I think. Then the last thing is this display names concept. We have now the concept of display names, and those display names can be different from the login names, because in some organizations, in some LDAP or Active Directory setups, you have like a special short login names. Sometimes they include really numbers and special characters because it has to be short or something. There are all kinds of policies in place in different organizations. But the thing is, if you use those login names in ownCloud, if you want to share a file with someone, for example, that's sometimes not very intuitive. So we have this concept of display names. Display names can be like full names, including titles of persons, and those display names there can be shown inside ownCloud. So it's a lot easier for people to understand who this person really is. And we can take these display names from different sources. We can read it from Active Directory or LDAP service, as I said, or we can even like maintain them inside ownCloud. You can even choose to give the users the permission that they can change their display names themselves or not. It depends on the internal policies of the organization if the person is allowed to rename themselves or not. But you have the choice. You have the config option if this is allowed or not. But it's a very powerful feature, and our customers like it a lot because it makes ownCloud so much more like usable and more personal if you see real names in there. Okay. Yeah. Now we have a few features. We really tried to create nice screenshots. But those are really features where it's really difficult to have nice screenshots because they're a little bit more technical, but still very interesting in my opinion. First of all, I think we have the security, the encryption system. This is a very powerful functionality. This is optional. By default, this is disabled. But in the apps management, you can just enable the encryption feature, and then it's enabled. Of course, you have to understand that the encryption of every file, especially if you work with big files, several gigabytes of size, and then the encryption system will make ownCloud a little bit more slower. So you have to evaluate if you want to use this or not. It's optional. It's completely your choice. If it's enabled, then it means that that every file on ownCloud is encrypted with a strong encryption system. That's very nice. Very interesting in the case of ownCloud is that we planned this feature for a long time and really think that it's very powerful because it supports a few additional interesting concepts. First of all, this is relatively unique, I think, in the industry, is that it's still possible to share files and folders with other people in the organization, even if it's encrypted with your personal key and your personal password. So we integrated a very nice, very powerful sharing system inside the encryption system. So it's encrypted and no one else can read it, but if you choose to share it with someone, then this is still possible. So this is a very powerful system in our opinion. And the last thing that's integrated here is the concept of a recovery key. This is again your choice. By default, this functionality is deactivated, which means if a user forgets the password, then the file is basically lost, because there's no way to decrypt the file and to, I mean, the key is there, but the key is also encrypted. So if a user forgets the password, then basically the files are gone, which sounds like a problem. On the other hand, this is the maximum security, of course, that you can have. But we have this option, this optional feature called recovery key. So it is possible to activate this functionality, and then you have like an admin recovery key feature, which means in the case someone forgets the password, the admin can always take the recovery key out of the safe, for example, type in the recovery key, and then the file is decrypted again. Of course, this is always nice in an organization that you can recover keys. Of course, this also means that like the admin can have, in certain circumstances, can have access to the files of a user. So this is something that you have to decide if this is useful for you or not, and in which configuration. And again, we provide all the options here. So, and again, it's your choice what you want to have here. Then we have the antivirus plugin. That's a very nice feature that it works like that. If a new file is uploaded to ownCloud, it's automatically scanned with an antivirus plugin. We work together with the Plum AV system here. And if a virus is found, there are two options. First option is the file is automatically deleted, or the second option is it's not deleted, but the admin is and the user is notified about the virus. So you again have the choice what you want to do if a virus is found. Of course, it's also logged in the log file, so you can do all kind of automation there. That's your choice. Then we have the improved versioning. So it's a lot more intelligent in working together with Quota, because it's quite tricky to decide which versions to keep if a user runs out of Quota. And we have a very intelligent system here in place that makes sure that newer files are, newer versions of a file are always available. And the older the versions are, the less snapshots we have. So for example, if you work with a Word file for a year, we have snapshots, like versions of these files for the same day. We have several versions every few hours or minutes. And then for the last weeks, only once a day, and then later only once a month. And then we keep versions until we're running out of Quota. So it's a very intelligent system, and it's managed automatically, so users don't have to like manually expire stuff like that to get more space. It's all managed automatically. Versions are kept until storage is running out, and then it automatically cleans up versions in an intelligent way. Then we have the capabilities API. That's a nice new API that provides external applications some information about its own cloud server. So our desktop clients and our mobile clients, for example, that learn via this capabilities API how this server is configured, and it can adapt to it. Some options, as I said earlier, can be enabled or disabled. So we need different behaviors on our clients too, and we can do this with this capabilities API, and this gives us a lot more flexibility and options, especially for the future. And you can call this too. For example, if you integrate your own cloud, as I said, into your existing infrastructure, of course you can call this capabilities API too, and just understand, okay, what is the status of this server? Is it running well? Is there a problem? And so on. So it's very, very handy. Server optimizations. We did a lot of improvements in speed. The general file management. So uploading and downloading or listing of files is over 500% faster now. This is especially important if you have a lot of files in your organization. So if you're really terabytes and terabytes of files stored in an ownCloud server, then it's very, very fast and very optimized now. And the apps management, that's more flexible. So if you want to add an additional app or you disable an app, that's more intelligent and more robust now. And what we can do too is you can update apps. So if in the central app store a new version of an app is available, you get a notification in your ownCloud, and with one click you can update it to a new version. So it's easy to keep your ownCloud server up to date. And the last thing, as I said, the documentation. We have a very, very nice, powerful, rich documentation. As I said, go to doc.owncloud.com and you can see all the information for admins, for developers, and for users. Okay. Again, here just a summary of existing functionalities, but we think it's very important and nice to mention them again. We have this versioning and rollback system for files. As I said earlier, you can always click on a special icon on a file or folder and say, okay, I want to see existing versions of this entry, and you can get a list of the existing versions from minutes ago or even months or years ago, and with one click you can restore them. So if you by accident saved something and destroyed important information, with just one click you can roll it back. CRUD support, which this means that you have a very powerful way to configure the rights of a user for a file or folder if you shared it with someone. So for example, you can share a file with someone and say, okay, this is only shared read only, or it's shared read and write, or this share expires after a certain time, or this file can be deleted by this other person or not. So it's really, you can configure quite detailed permissions there. That's very powerful. The logging module, that's an enterprise feature only. We can log all kinds of activities in the ownCloud server. So if you want to see everything working well, or how is it used, and what are people doing with the server, and just normal auditing and monitoring and just normal administration. It's a very handy tool with this logging module, where you can log basically every action that people do on your ownCloud. Storage abstraction layer. ownCloud can mount all kinds of storages into your ownCloud. So by default, it works with some local storage, but you can mount an existing object store, like if you have a Swift or S3 or some kind of other storage, SMB, FTP servers. It's possible to mount this into your ownCloud. So it's very, very easy to leverage your existing storage infrastructure. White labeling, that's also a very, very powerful feature. This means that you can rebrand, you can white label your ownCloud, you can replace with our theming system, replace every picture in ownCloud, a logo, for example, and every color with your company color, and you can really white label that in a very easy way. We have a theming directory, and we have a nice documentation how to do this in our documentation system. So we can take ownCloud and really brand it as you like. So it's very powerful. And of course, it's also possible to white label, to rebrand our desktop clients and our mobile applications, iOS and Android. That's also possible. And we can definitely help you with that. just get in contact with us and we can make this happen for you. So you have your personal iOS app in the iOS store, for example, that connects to your company cloud. So we do this regularly and it's very easy. We have an app store, which means we have additional features and functionalities for your own cloud. People develop that, and developers decide to share their apps with the world. So they upload it into our app store. It's called apps.owncloud.com, and there's a nice list of third-party extensions. You can just upload your modification there. You can download the apps from other people, put it into your own cloud, exchange ideas, change functionalities, extend your own cloud. It's a very, very powerful resource. And of course, we have functionalities like you can view PDF files inside ownCloud. We have an ODS viewer to view ODS. We can work with drag and drop and so on. So there's a lot of features. I don't have time to mention all of them. If you know ownCloud or if you played around with it already, you know that there are a lot of functionalities in there. Okay, so now I give back to Matt for an overview of the differences between the community and the enterprise edition of ownCloud.
Sure, thanks, Frank. One of the questions we often get is exactly that. Right? What's different between the community and the enterprise edition? And just to lay it out into a slide here to talk to it at the end after we've talked through what's new and different and a little bit about what's unique in the enterprise edition versus the community edition. The community edition is open source. It's free. Grab it, use it, work with it. There's a tremendous number of apps that have been built for the community edition that work inside ownCloud. And all of the desktop sync clients and the mobile apps will all connect to a community edition server. And it's truly fully functional. And here when we say up to 50 users, the intention here is simply we don't tend to see folks with more than 50 users using the community edition. It's possible, but the idea behind the enterprise edition is that the 50 users, typically under that, we don't think that the enterprise edition is worth the effort and the cost. And then for more than 50 users, that's really what we're designing some of these additional features for the enterprise to help you manage more than that. From a subscription standpoint, of course, Community Edition is completely free, and in that case, the iOS and Android apps are 99 cents. Otherwise, everything else is free. The 50 users on the subscription side of the enterprise, what you're getting is support, influence, and tools. And so what does that mean? It means from a support standpoint, of course, email support, enterprise class global coverage, and what you would expect from an enterprise software company providing you support. We also provide influence over the roadmaps through ownCloud's own roadmaps, the ownCloud Inc.'s roadmaps, in addition to access to the planning process, consultation on architectural items and other things like that, and the conduit to even reach out to the community to help sometimes with some of the work you need to do, some custom coding and things like that. From a tool standpoint, what we're providing with the Community Edition, with the Enterprise Edition is everything in the Community Edition, of course, plus you get the QA and certification. So you may have noticed that ownCloud 5 Community Edition has been out for some months now. ownCloud 5 Enterprise Edition is just being released this week, and the difference in time there was spent really certifying, QAing and certifying the product, and then building some of these extensions on top of ownCloud. And those extensions that also come along with the subscription include the Oracle and Microsoft SQL that we've talked about, the home directory or CIFS mounts that we talked about, the anonymous upload feature Frank showed you, the encryption app Frank talked about, provisioning APIs, and also the logging modules. Those are proprietary software elements built on top of the ownCloud Community Edition that in general the enterprise finds useful and helps make ownCloud more functional, more integrated into the existing environment. You also then, if you're an Enterprise Edition subscriber, you will also get the Android and iOS apps included in that subscription, and we have some performance tuning and documentation that can help you get up and running faster on the Enterprise Edition. And last but not least has to do with the nature of the license. We do have, of course, the open source Community Edition follows all the AGPL, GPL, and a variety of licenses there. But the Enterprise Edition has a dual license model, which means that we can license core bits of ownCloud to you if you need to make changes that are unique to your business that you do not want to be open sourced. We have the ability to license it to you in that form, in a form that can be consumed. So that's really the net difference between the two, and the target audience for the two different elements in general. So I also see a couple of questions which I want to get to. The up to 50 users was asked, for example, do you lose functionality? No. We're not going to, we don't somehow cripple the Enterprise Edition. It's fully functional. You can get more than 50 users on the Enterprise Edition if you so choose. It just tends to be something we don't suggest, because at some point you're going to want to be integrating in with Active Directory and LDAP. You're going to want to be looking at some of the enterprise features like logging modules to get extended logging out of it in production for more than that number of users. So that's why we suggest it, but it's not a hard limit. Hopefully that answers that question, and we'll move on. So in summary, just very quickly about ownCloud 5 Enterprise Edition. This was designed as a security integration and usability release. We talked through all those features that provided each of those elements. And all of that helps us build on the fact that we are fully on-site, deployed and managed where you choose, integrated in with the infrastructure on-site and extensible through internal and external APIs, while still providing that consumer-like end-user experience. Of course, we don't want to just tell you that. We would really like you to see it, and we provide you with a number of ways to take a look at ownCloud. OwnCloud.com has a whole number of capabilities there. There's a virtual appliance. There's also the download of the code itself. Take a look, poke around, and if you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to us. And with that, are there any questions? I think there's one question I've got just sitting in the back of my head, and then there have been a couple that have come in through Q&A, and then we'll go from there if there are other questions. Of course, Frank, maybe this is a good one to ask you. If I'm running 4.5 now, what's it take to get me to 5? How difficult is this migration from 4.5 to 5?
I mean, it should be really straightforward. I mean, we put a lot of effort into this migration, so it's really as easy as possible. And we have documentation for that in the documentation system. Of course, I really recommend to have a look. But in general, it works like that. You basically replace the ownCloud code with the new one, and it depends on if you use a package system or if you install the ownCloud server from a tar file. It really depends. But in general, you replace ownCloud, but you keep the config file in the config folder, and you keep the data folder, and then everything else is migrated automatically. Of course, I would recommend to do a backup first, of course, obviously, if you do this on a production system. But that's basically all you have to do. Then you open your ownCloud again in your browser, and then you get you can see a migration wizard that starts. It's entering maintenance mode, which means that no other user can access ownCloud. It's only for admins only for you. Then the migration is done in the database and the file system and so on. And then after a few seconds, and depends on your on the number of files that you have in your ownCloud, of course, it leaves the migration mode again, and then your ownCloud is successfully migrated, and you have ownCloud 5. So it should be very easy.
Thanks for answering that, Frank. Another question, Frank, I think that's a good one for you as I'm reading it. It was a question as to whether or not you could set the max upload, right? So of a single file from the web app. Do you want to tag that one real quick?
I think there's a setting for that.
Yep.
It's possible to configure that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And
Yep.
if you, by the way, it's the max upload size it's that's actually a tricky question, because it like our mobile apps and our desktop streaming apps, they can deal with big files automatically. We have a feature called big file chunking, so you can really configure ownCloud that the limits of the maximum file size limit in ownCloud as you want, and it always works. The thing with the web interface is a little bit different because in the web interface, that's also the case for direct web DAF requests, by the way. In those two cases, it's a little bit more tricky because you have to check the configuration of your web server that you use, and you have to check the configuration of PHP that you use to really support big files. And you also have documentation for that, but supporting like huge files in the web interface sometimes require a few configuration changes in your server, but it's documented.
Okay, excellent. Another question, which I'll pick up, it says, are the mobile apps provided with the Enterprise Edition the same as the paid apps in the Google and Android stores? In general, yes. They are the same or within a version, and that's usually just a matter of the apps getting reviewed and approved and posted in Apple, for example. So fundamentally, yes, the apps are the same. The difference there being if you choose to take on a white labeling or a branding exercise, you can make the look and feel of the apps mesh nicely in with your own look and feel that you're going for. And in that sense, the apps are actually different. And the apps can be configured so that, for example, they can only be connected to one ownCloud server. My personal ownCloud mobile app is connected to 6 different ownCloud services with different accounts, URLs, and passwords. And I switch between them in the mobile app, no problem. You can brand it and turn that feature off, as an example, in a configuration, and we'll do that for you as part of a branding conversation, as Frank suggested earlier, that we can talk to you about doing that. We have a service, we have an offering that does exactly that, and then a subscription that will also do that for you on a regular basis to keep the latest apps in your hands with your branding. So entirely up to you, but in general, the apps are the same unless you choose to do branding, and then they're different. And then there was a question here about what we've done for syncing large files. So, and this would be desktop syncing of large files. And I know we've made quite a number of improvements in our desktop sync client to get to 1.3.0 as well. Frank, do you want to just comment on the performance of large file syncing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's very related to what I said earlier. The thing is, ownCloud itself never had a limit, a file size limit. But the challenge was that all the other components, like the web server, PHP, some proxy server that you might have in between, some load balancer, some firewall that you might have in between your server and your client. In all these places, there might be limits, like HTTP upload limits somewhere in place. And we, as I said, we have a lot of documentation how to work around that. But at the end of the day, there are always components where we don't have control over. For example, if you're a corporate firewall, then I mean, good luck with changing the route in there. And that's tricky. Because of that, we have a new system in place called big file chunking, which means that if our desktop client or our mobile client, if you upload a big file, then it's chunked in smaller pieces, and the pieces are uploaded one by one, and the server they're put together again to the big file. And that's a very nice feature because it gives you several advantages. First of all, it works basically with an unlimited file size. And another advantage is if your internet connection goes down between the upload and then it works again. So for example, if you work from your tablet or your phone and you have a bad internet connection, then it just uploads the first few pieces and then the connection is down. And if it's working again, if it's up again, then it uploads the remaining pieces and then it's put together on the server again, and then everything is fine. So this is very robust, and we basically work around successfully around all these other limitations that you might have in the infrastructure somewhere. Okay.
We had a question here about an example about the logging. It's a little difficult to show you, so one of the things I suggest we could do is actually just reach out to us, and we can connect with you and on a call and just talk quickly about the logging option, if that makes sense. What it essentially does is log to the log file additional lines for when a file is shared or when a file is downloaded or when a file is uploaded, and provides you with a deeper level of logging and inspection, which allows you to, through a log manager, do a much more granular set of controls and reporting on top of ownCloud itself. So logging modules become very important in the enterprise. It's a little tough and they're kind of ugly because it's all command line and they're just straight up log files. But for more information on the log files, I'd say we could provide it with you, or provide it to you even to play with without a whole lot of trouble. We just need to connect with you somehow offline. So if you want to reach out to us through ownCloud.com, there's a bunch of ways to reach out to us, or just email info@ownCloud.com and we'll have a conversation. So the next question we had was the OC5 community only allowing a maximum of 50 users. No, that is not true. The community edition will not stop at 50 or 60 users, or there is no cap. We find that at some point that there are architectural decisions that need to be made to support larger numbers of users in an effective manner, and that from our perspective, once you hit 50, that's just a place where some of the features and functions we provide in the Enterprise Edition, and also some of the architectural decisions we walk you through when you sign up for the Enterprise Edition, help you make the right scaling decisions for architecting ownCloud. So there is no hard limit at 50. It's simply a guidance for how you're thinking about scaling it yourself that we can be helpful to you above 50. Let's see. There are a couple other questions in here. What is the subscription cost for the Enterprise Edition? That's something we can reach out. It starts at $15 a user a month. So total at 50, the starting price is $9,000 a year. For us, it's an open source product, so that's a subscription base on a yearly basis. And then there are, of course, volume discounts for larger numbers above that, and it tails off and comes down below $15 a user. But that's roughly on par industry standard with a supported enterprise file sync and share solution, whether on-site or even in the cloud. There is absolutely no problem with using the Community Edition for commercial use, as long as you meet the needs and the demands of the open source licenses that are provided with ownCloud. You can use it to do whatever you want. Just answering that question. Another question, do you consider the mobile apps mature, or are they in active development? That's kind of like a yes and a yes. As with everything in the software space these days, we do regular releases of both, and we have recently on the mobile apps updated the libraries and dramatically improved performance of both apps. And we're constantly upgrading and tweaking the UI. We're constantly adding new features. For example, something you'll see in the near term here that's not in it yet is going to be offline queue management, so that you can queue things for upload once you've edited them on your device when you're not connected to a network. And then when you come back online, those will be synced up to the cloud. So that's something that's coming next. And we constantly add features and functions. But it's worth saying that our goal for the our goal for the mobile apps is to primarily provide the best file sync and share solution we can. Over time, we'll be adding other features and functions beyond that, but think about it as file sync and share. So that's being able to download, edit, and upload, or keep favorites synchronized, or upload and download on Wi-Fi only, those kinds of features. When we get into the mobile apps and we start thinking along the lines of things like music streaming, that's not something that's particularly file sync and share per se. You can download and play music in ownCloud, no problem. It just won't stream it. And at this point, there are other apps that can help you do that. Some community apps on Android. There's also a Google Reader, and I think it's called ownCloud News. That's actually an app that allows you on Android to use Google, to replace Google Reader with ownCloud, running that and using that on your Android device. So there are all sorts of interesting community apps and things you can do with ownCloud on your mobile devices as well. Those are not currently supported. Of course, those are community-based, but they're pretty neat demonstration of the power of the platform. And we're coming up on 12:59, so we're basically running out of time. If you guys have other questions in terms of updates, that's actually a really good question. Frank, how would you think about, just as a last question, how often would you look for updates from ownCloud, both the Enterprise and Community Edition, going forward?
We normally release new versions when I talk about bug fixing. Of course, perhaps I should first explain that we had two kinds of releases. We had major releases, that is like ownCloud 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those are feature releases that are feature releases where we add fundamental new features. And we do that every, let's say, 3 times a year, something like that. And in between, we do bug fix and security releases. So there are something like ownCloud 5.01, 5.02, 5.03, and so on. And these releases, they come, let's say, between 2 and 4, every 2 and 4 weeks. And it's always recommended, of course, to upgrade to them. You don't get any new functionalities with that, but you just get the latest fixes and the latest polish.
Great. And I think, given the timing, that is it for today. Everybody, thank you for joining us. If we did not get around to answering your call, or answering your question on this call, we will reach out to you and answer your question offline, see if we can help you there. The next presentation coming up, Managing Your ownCloud Installation with our Senior Consultant, Bob Belay, will be on August 6th at 1. So put that on your calendars and head on over to owncloud.com/webinars to register. Other than that, thank you for joining us. I appreciate your time, and we will look forward to talking with you in a few weeks. Have a good day.
Thanks.